We are live. We got Harry W. We got Richie from Jets Media, Matt O'Leary, Iowa Jets fan, who in the house. We got Dom C in the house. We got Steve, live CEO of the Jet Lounge. So I knew I'd get rich on my channel. See what's going on. Yeah, there we go. Woo.
Jets by $1 million today.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Jets Chaos of the Jet Lounge. I'm here I'm like looking around, like, where am I? I'm in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. That's right. The South. I can talk like this if I want. But I'm on the East Coast, and that's important because when you're on the East Coast, you can get things that you can't normally get on the West Coast. So just in case you worry, don't worry. I've eaten a lot of pizza, a lot of sandwiches, heroes. I've been chowing down. I can't even tell you how many things I realize I missed when I'm looking around. I was in the supermarket in a Wegmans. They have that down here. And there were Kaiser rolls. I can't even tell you just a Kaiser roll, what that means for me. I can now fry an egg, melted cheese, some bacon. Oh, it's amazing. Anyway, we got to get going. Let's see who's here in the house. We got proud New York Jets fan. Now, that is Nick Shine, everybody. He's not going to be here tonight. Because he's having a great year. And to add to all the amazing, great things that is happening to him this year, he's back in the ER with an infection in his toe. So we're hoping that antibiotics will work. He's getting that work done and checked out. But yes, he's still having a problem with that toe. It's been giving him a hard time. But he's going to be okay. We'll just figure out what they have to do to treat him, and he's not going to be here tonight. But we do have a special guest tonight. I'll introduce him in a minute, right after I get to some of you. Jets mess. What's going on? Yes, I am Snacks, and you are the mess. And Twisted is in the house. Look, all my members are here. All my snackers are here. Yeah, I'm on early today. It's true, because I'm in North Carolina. So if I go on it, my normal time at 10, that means I'm actually on at 10. Now, as I expect you people to listen to me and stay up late, that doesn't mean that I want to do the show late. I'm not crazy, you know what I mean? So I'm doing the show at 8 because I'm here on the East Coast. That's what's going on with that. But we might make it permanently 8 o'clock. Who knows? I think it's easy for everyone, right? We'll find out. But some guy is here. What's going on? Some guy Twisted again. He's saying, get the hell out of here. I don't know what that means. Oh, with Nick. Yeah, it's crazy. Alexia was here in the house. We have your new hours. Okay. All right. But without further ado, let me get the music going. He wanted an intro. Our guest wanted an intro. We're going to give him an intro. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce this Italian man. And no, it's not Italy, Jets. It's not Italy. There are other Italians in the world. That's right. There are other Italians. And this guy I happen to know, he had a birthday celebration yesterday, and he had ordered 5 pizzas. Now, that's my kind of guy. Let me tell you something. Sometimes I'm just sitting alone with my wife here at my parents' house, and I'm tempted to order 5 pizzas. I don't know why. I can't eat 5 pies. But just the stack of boxes, the smell, you open them all up. You know what I mean? Maybe I eat a slice from each of them. I don't know. But here is the Italian. New York Jet rooting, even though he's in the middle behind enemy lines of the New England Patriots. The Jet Lounge listening, the Jet Lounge talking, the YouTube content providing, the greatest, just had his birthday, Italian guest in the world! Vinny C.
That was awesome. That was awesome. It doesn't get any better than that. You should do
Oh,
that
what a
professionally, Jeremy. I swear you should do that professionally. You'll make good bread, believe me.
I wish. I have a friend who actually was an announcer in the improv group I was in, and I learned that from him. And he honestly, we were just the guys in North Carolina when I lived here for comedy sports. I copied all my announcing from him, and he is actually the announcer, the official announcer for the Carolina Hurricanes.
The former Hartford Whalers.
Yeah, so he
Yeah.
is literally the announcer. He went from this little theater that I was in with him and doing it, and I'm thinking, well, why can't I do it, man? I was in Sacramento, for comedy sports doing the announcing, so that would be a dream. I would do that in a second. My whole life, I've been imitating both the Yankees and Mets, Yankee Stadium, Shea Stadium, City Fit. I always do. Like, I still to this day will, like, if you give me a microphone, will announce Darryl Strawberry, or I'll announce Derek Jeter. So.
No, that's good stuff. Hey, I mean, if Michael Buffer ever needs a stand-in, I'm gonna reference your name.
I love those guys too. I copy from everybody. I stole the intro of all the things, like the hot dog eating, pizza eating, ravioli eating. I took that from the Nathan's announcer who does the
Yes,
Nathan's
yes.
4th of July. I took obviously Buffer, like, in the world, but sometimes I'll even say, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the other guy. But I love that stuff. Anyway, how you doing, Vinny?
Hey, man, can't complain. One day into being 37, and I don't feel any older. Party was great last night. 5 different pies. You remembered our conversation. So I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to ask you before we get into Jets talk, what is your favorite thing to throw on a pie?
Well, it's funny you should say that. First of all, I always put, especially if I'm trying new places, and especially living in California now, when I come back to visit New York, I get a regular cheese pie because I want to taste what I'm missing. When you have horrible pizza on the West Coast, they throw all kinds of crap on their pizza because it's so bad. They have to find a way to make it edible. They
Hmm.
put ranch dressing on their pizza. I'm not joking.
I have heard of that. I
Okay,
have.
that's how bad the pizza is in California. So when I come east, I just want regular pizza. I just want to, remind myself what pizza tastes like. But if I get used to it, I'm back and I'm like, okay, I'm not used to this now. I like to mix it up. I'm more of a sausage than pepperoni because the pepperoni gets so greasy and it pours all over the pizza. So I'm more like black olives, sausage and mushrooms. I always thought was a good combination.
Anything with a
Uh,
meat lover's taste to it, right? That's what it
yeah,
sounds like.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, for those of you in your audience that don't know, I live in the heart of New England, and as a diehard New York sports fan, I hate to break the news to everyone in the city, but this past year, New Haven, Connecticut, which that's where I went to school, finally surpassed New York City as the pizza capital of the nation. So if anybody's familiar with the New Haven area, Worcester Street, Sally's, Frank Pepe's, that is
Sally's.
the best and the best in the country. So New
A
York,
Pete's.
slide over. We are now number one. So if you ever in my neck of the woods, Jeremy, I will treat you.
Believe me, I've wanted to go for so long, and I really should have when I lived in the city. I should have taken the train out there. I've wanted to try Sally's for so long. It looks amazing. I mean, it looks amazing. Coal fired, the thin crust. It looks so good.
Oh, dude,
Um,
and at this
yeah.
time of year in the summertime, the line is out the door,
Wow.
and that's
Wow.
just to get it by the slice.
All right. So at some point when I make it to New York and have like real time there, I have to take the train out there and meet you or whatever and go there and we'll go and we'll hang out. We'll order a
A
pie.
hundred percent, a
Yeah.
hundred percent.
Yeah. I wouldn't even mind trying like a couple of places there, but I definitely want to try Sally's. I mean, from what I've heard and the people I trust, that's kind of like what I think. I don't know how you feel about it, but a lot of people I've talked to keep telling me Sally's is the best.
It's awesome. I mean, you could tell that the sauce is authentic, all homemade ingredients, and you watch the guys, they make it right in front of you, so you
Wow.
know it's got that authentic taste to it, straight from Italy.
Wow. So Twisted is in that area. Pepe's, yeah. So Pepe's, I heard of also. I just like the whole of pizza. I love how that comes when people say, "What is that from?" And it's just such the answer you would make up in your head that you think someone was full of crap. Oh, it's because people just started saying "up pizza."
And dude, I'm old enough to remember because I'm in the city all the time, at least 3-4 times a year. I'll take the train into Grand Central. I'm old enough to remember, like, do you remember pizza by the dollar slices
Yeah.
in the city?
Oh
Now it's
yeah.
just it's a thing that doesn't exist anymore.
Wow. Wow.
He's good,
Um.
bro. He's good, bro. I actually met that gentleman
Mhm.
last year in the stadium. I announced on my channel where I was gonna be. Good guy, awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, where do we begin, man? Where do you want to? I want to talk Jets.
Yeah. So, let's start with how about Dalvin Cook? There was, I had a New England fans on a different show that I do, telling me that the Miami Dolphins offered him a contract, but now I'm hearing through the rumor mill that a lot of teams have put their offers in, and he's just weighing them and still negotiating. I guess his agent's trying to get as much money as possible. How do you feel about it? Do you think it's important that we win this sweepstakes? Do you care that much if we get him or not?
At the right price. At the right price. Now, I'm not a fan of paying running backs historically. You know, they don't last. The average lifespan of a running back is what, 3-4 years, unless you're talking about somebody elite. We as Jets fans know we were recently burned with Le'Veon Bell when he came to town. But as far as bringing in somebody like Dalvin Cook, if you can bring him in, two things or whatnot, you immediately upgrade your roster. I got his stats right before we started the show. I just wrote them down. I mean, last year alone, he's coming off of an awesome year. 264 carries, 1173 on the ground. He's averaging 4.5 a carry, and he got 8 touchdowns. He's not showing any signs of slowing down. But I'm also a fan of the fact that, when it comes to running backs, not paying them, I like young running backs out of the draft. I wouldn't draft a running back any higher than the 3rd round, and that's if it's a prospect you just can't pass up on. With that said, is Breece Hall going to be ready week 1? I don't know. I firmly believe he's going to be RB1 and you're still going to put him out there. But is he going to take the typical load that he's, used to handling? That I don't know. So as far as our depth chart compared to Miami's got Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., Devon Shane, who I don't even know who that is. You look at our depth chart, Breece Hall, who's coming off of the ACL, Michael Carter coming off of a very down year. We just invested a 5th-round draft selection into Izzy out of Pittsburgh. And then, of course, you got Bam Knight. You look at those 4 guys there, the odd man out, I have to say, is Michael Carter, because I'm sorry, it is what it is. The guy had a terrible year. He fumbles the ball. He drops the ball. He's not an RB1. He's just not. Bam Knight, I feel comfortable stashing away on the practice squad. God forbid somebody has a catastrophic injury. And Izzy's going to be on this roster. He is. You're not going to just throw him away. So with that said, you could hurt the Dolphins and you can improve your roster. Bring Dalvin Cook. I think a reasonable contract would be a 1-year deal. I would put $5 million on the table. I would fully guarantee it to entice him and add incentives in there that he can make up to 6, 7, even maybe possibly $8 million.
Right. So if like that incentive for 8 million could be if Brees Hall isn't right and he gets 60% of the snaps and rushes for over 1,000 yards, then that 8 million will be well worth it, right? I mean, obviously, because we would have been in a bad situation possibly. But if Brees is great in himself and he's just a contributor, then he makes his 5 million. He gives us that depth, he gives us that security, but we're not going to pay him any extra money or incentive because Brees Hall will have ended up being fine. I mean, I like that, and I just hope that our, you know, I think a lot of people are thinking, well, the fact that we're interested in Cook means that they're very concerned about Brees Hall. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think if they were really concerned about Brees Hall, or if there was bad news that they're not telling us, I think they just would have signed Cook by now. They just would have made it happen. I
True,
think,
true.
right?
But I don't think Joe Douglas is a fool. Like his history as a general manager has shown he's not going to overpay and he's not going to be fooled by the suitor or another team like looking to make a trade. With Cook, I mean, and it's not just Cook. Say it doesn't work out. Say Cook goes to Miami, God forbid. Okay, is it the end of the world? Is the sky falling? No. those four guys I mentioned are more than capable to be, starting running backs for the New York Jets. But that doesn't mean there's not other running backs out there. And I'm not, tooting the horn of these guys, but you got a Kareem Hunt out there, Ezekiel Elliott's out there, possibly a couple of others I can't think of off the top of my head. But it's not like there's not running backs out on the market. If you really think that you're hurting at the running back position, they're out there.
Right. Right. I happen to like the draft pick with Israel. I think that I don't know, man. There's something about him I like. I don't know if it's the way the announcers yell his name. I don't know. I just watched a lot of the games he was in. He's just seems like a rumbling, tumbling, pinball. Like he bangs around, and then when he gets into some space, he just takes off. And I don't know. He's kind of fun to watch when you watch, when you just go on YouTube and just type his name and watch a lot of his highlights and, watch some of the games he was in with Pittsburgh. He's just a fun guy to watch. And it's like, I'm thinking he's a guy that's either not going to translate to the NFL and give us nothing, or he's a guy who can end up being, wow, if Breece Hall wasn't on the Jets, this guy would, or if he played on another team, this could be a legitimate RB1 running back. So he seems like he has that potential. His ceiling is, could be really high because he seems really explosive. He's super fast, like really, really fast. But it's not just that he's speed and no skill. He really does cut well, and he's a one cut and run runner, which is, I think, for this offensive scheme, it's what Breece Hall does. It's what Bam Knight was doing when he was playing really well. We were all excited about it. That one cut, no wasting time. You make your decision, you make the one cut, you take off.
Exactly. He kind of reminds me of like a young Leon Washington. I think the only knock on him for him to drop down to the 5th round was he's kind of weak after he takes the first hit to be able to bounce off the defender and keep his legs moving. But if he gets out in open space, I mean, he's gone. He's out of here. And that's what I really like on him. Very light on his feet. He's got an explosive first step. I think the way you really want to get him up to speed on the speed of the NFL game compared to the collegiate game is in September, get him involved on special teams, put him on the kickoff team, the punt return team, make him a kick returner, just get him out there, get him game time experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think with a guy like this, I think with an offense like this, if our offensive line, knock on wood, stays healthy, I think with Aaron Rodgers preventing a defense from stacking the box, it is going to be very believable and possible that we're going to see this guy get opportunities to see daylight and see space. Because when when the defense can't stack the box and your offensive line is healthy and you have guys that in the past have done it, if Becton is healthy, we know that he can, pancake guys. AVT, we can have this, this new center Tippmann looks like the real deal. There might be opportunities for this guy to get to run in space and really utilize that speed and that explosiveness. And that's freaking exciting.
It is super exciting, Jeremy. And, the thing that most Jets fans, and not just Jets fans, football fans aren't talking about this team is I really expect the running game to pick up. And the reason I say that is last year we didn't have a quarterback. Everybody knew that Zach Wilson couldn't quarterback his way out of a paper bag. So they're like, oh, the kid can't throw downfield or whatnot. We're just going to stack the box. Because then the only other thing we had left to do was our running game, and our offensive line was consistently hurt. Now you got two different dynamics to worry about. You got Aaron Rodgers either dropping back to pass behind our newly retuned line, or possibly now open up the running game. It just, the last time we had a dynamic offense with this team was the 2015 Ryan Fitzpatrick year, which we're not going to get into how that ended tragically,
Yeah.
But I honestly think Rodgers can set the single game passing touchdown record for the Jets, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fitzpatrick set it that year at 31. And he'll just shatter that easily. I think he shatters in early December.
Yeah. I honestly, I could see this being, I think 40 is very realistic. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but I think it's realistic. He throws 40 touchdowns. If there's circumstances. It depends on a few things. If he doesn't, it could be just because the running game is so good. And when you have the ability to run the ball at will, there's no reason to pass a lot. It's just you just control the game and you run. Especially when you have a defense like ours. You just run the ball, eat up time, score points. But if the running game is just okay and we need him to score touchdowns through the air, there's no doubt that it's with Garrett Wilson, Conklin, and Lazard and Corey Davis, and then Hardman is good for some, there's and then even even Brees Hall, when he's healthy, we saw from Brees Hall turn screen passes into touchdown passes. So 40 is very realistic. Like, I can completely see him getting to 40 touchdowns. Part of me hopes that it's not because he has to, because I'd rather us be really balanced and be able to, do whatever we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want it to be 40 touchdowns because we need him to. I'd like it to be just because we score so much freaking points, we have no choice. We're just walking up and down the field, we're scoring tons of touchdowns. And as weird as that is to say, as a Jets fan, it seems more realistic than it ever has that we can be that team. We could be one of the top 3 offenses in the NFL in scoring. Like, it's very believable.
Yeah, and it's crazy to say that. It's just like, why not us? I mean, Boomer Esiason recently was quoted on WFAN, said he's thinking the number could actually exceed 50. And I can't believe I'm just even talking about these numbers. As a Jets fan, just can you imagine 50 touchdowns by a Jets quarterback? I wouldn't know what to say. I really don't know what to say. I mean, I think the last Pro Bowl quarterback we had was Vinny Testaverde.
Yeah, how about 4,000 plus yards?
Yeah, and the last person to do that was Joe Willie. So imagine that. And now we play 17 games, and back then it was 14. To think we haven't done it since the late 60s. I mean, I'm just so tired of just watching this incompetent, bad football. It's time. The thing is with the New York Jets that shocks me is anytime we've had those great teams that had those playoff runs is because we had a really strong defensive unit, whether it was the Rex years, even in the 80s with the sack exchange. The last time we had a really explosive offense was like Fitzpatrick, what I said earlier, and then that 98 team with Vinny and Parcells.
Yeah. And so Joe Namath, only quarterback in Jets history to throw over 4,000 yards. I'd be disappointed if Aaron Rodgers doesn't break 4,000 this year. I would bet, I would definitely take the over that and think that I would definitely bet, even money against anyone that he breaks Joe Namath's record in yardage for the season.
Yeah, and wouldn't that be something? And just the thing is, I think you're going to get a pissed off Aaron Rodgers. If we had Rodgers last year with his broken thumb, don't hold me to this stat, but I think with those numbers, he would have finished as it would have been the 3rd or 4th greatest quarterback performance by a Jets quarterback if he's on the roster last year with the broken thumb. Imagine a pissed off, healthy Aaron Rodgers of what he's going to do with real weapons. I mean, what did they do to help this guy in Green Bay in the last 2-3 years? Did they draft him a first-round wide receiver? No, what they did was they drafted his heir. Oh, okay, that's good. That's how you make the team better. It was drafting his replacement. You're getting Garrett Wilson. You're going to get Corey Davis. You bring in a McCall Hardman. You bring in your guy in Alan Lazard. Your other guy in Randall Cobb. I mean, what more do you want? There should be no more excuses with this team about weaponry around the quarterback, and he should have a strong offensive line for him. The thing is just maintaining that same unit week in, week out, because I think last year we led the league in different combinations that we tried it out with the offensive line.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's called regression to the mean. The abnormity and the statistical impossibility of the amount of injuries we had to the offensive line. It's almost guaranteed we're going to go back to the normal average line of injury for the offensive line because it was such an absurd, year. Like, the amount of offensive linemen we lost throughout the year was just insanity. It made no sense. And we also have a lot of more depth than we did. Like, we almost built a team assuming guys are going to get hurt. When you look at the offensive line from 1 down to 9, it's incredible. I mean, tons of starting experience, tons of competency. So the difference between this year and the last 2 years, if somebody does get hurt, we're not bringing in a rookie. We're not bringing in somebody who's, just barely serviceable. We're actually bringing in legitimate guys who can start on other teams possibly.
Exactly. And Coach Parcells said it best. You can never have enough offensive linemen. You can't. And last year was pure proof of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's an interesting question, and I'm wondering about it. Will Mims get a chance? The first question is he even going to get a chance to compete? Like, is he getting like? Is it just so stacked the room, and they've had it with him, and if they don't like him, is he even going to get a real equal chance to compete to win a roster spot? Yet alone. Is there anything you think he could do in camp? Can he play well enough to not only secure a roster spot, but actually convince this new offensive coordinator, I have to get this guy into the game sometimes?
Mm, Tough to say, honestly, in my opinion. And things can always change because the NFL, injuries are going to happen all the time. But barring a catastrophic injury, I think he could secure a roster spot on another team. I just don't see it here. I just don't. There's just too many guys in front of him with everybody that I mentioned earlier. So what I think you do is you put him out there, try to get him some run with the first team, showcase his talents. I mean, I'm at the point where this kid, if you can even flip him for a fifth or sixth round, some type of day 3 pick, let him go so he can have an opportunity somewhere else. He already caused a disturbance last year when he asked for that for the trade. I forgot what point during the season, but I mean, you just showed your true colors right there, just like with Elijah. If you don't want to be here, send him on his way and get him out of here because he's part of the problem with that 2020 draft class. That as the time goes on, it looks uglier and uglier and uglier. And once he's gone, which I expect him to be gone, the only sole surviving member, if I'm not mistaken, would be Mekhi Becton. Or is Ashton Davis part of that class? I think he is too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and Ashton Davis at this point, he's a special teams player. They're only just keeping him on there because he's cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. Regilla makes a really good point. If he only played special teams, like
But
as far as him making the roster, I mean, it's hampering him. Like he's literally more at risk now because he obviously isn't flourishing in special teams. That's why he wasn't in the 48. That's why he was not dressing. He was getting beat out by guys because of special teams.
But Jeremy, I mean, it's not only that; it's just his antics. He would do such stupid things. I mean, this guy is just like with the injuries, the food poisoning. I was watching this man when the Jets were playing the Jaguars in that meaningless game towards the end of the season. I mean, he was running his route out of bounds. I mean, you're a professional football player. What are you doing?
Yeah, yeah. And I know a lot of us, it's so frustrating because he's such a he's so fast, he's so talented, he's so tall. Like everything about him when you his specs like say he should be such an elite player. And you just said it. The most important thing in football is to be a smart player. Wayne Corbett was far from the most physically talented or physically built or player in the world. But man, aside from playing hard and with heart, he was so smart. He was such a smart player. You look at Jerry Rice, and you look at the greatest of them all, the smartest player on the field. He understood football so well. He was so smart in his route running and what to do. It's everything. And maybe he's just doesn't have the football intelligence
Or the maturity.
Yeah.
It could be a number of things, but I mean, even touching base with Wayne Corbett to get a kid like that who was a walk-on from Hofstra. I mean, I was fortunate enough to meet Wayne Corbett at his restaurant in Hempstead in Long Island, where the Jets used to practice across the street from Hofstra. And I'm 5'10". I'm taller than Wayne Corbett, but let me tell you, even in his age, being retired, he's really still cut. I mean, he kept his body in phenomenal shape. I mean, granted, his thing ended his career were the concussions, but he might not have been the biggest guy in the field. But I'm telling you, he always had the biggest heart.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's why I got his jersey and I still wear it. So.
Yeah, how could you ever get rid of? And I think to this day they still haven't yet to reissue number 80 to any Jets player.
Oh, is that true? Is that so?
I believe so. I've never seen anyone wear that number. It's not officially retired. But it's I think it's a respect thing to know. Listen, that's Wayne's number.
Wow. Yeah, I'm super excited we talked about Aaron Rodgers and his numbers, and I think that one of the recipients of that's going to be really exciting to watch is Garrett Wilson. To when you think back to last year, it's hard to believe when you look at the quarterback play and our offense and the way we finished the season, the last 6 games, it's almost impossible to believe that there was a rookie receiver with 1,100 yards, 83 catches. It's just mind-boggling. And now we're going to Aaron Rodgers, and everything looks like it could potentially be so different for us. What does that mean for Garrett Wilson?
I think the first thing that's going to come to mind is Pro Bowl. I think if he's not named to the Pro Bowl this year, it would not only be a disappointment, it would be a shock. I mean, now he's going to get a true starting caliber, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback throwing his passes. I mean, to throw up the numbers that you just threw up and to do that with 4 different quarterbacks, it's unheard of. You know, between Wilson, Flacco, Strevler, who am I missing? There's a 4th guy somewhere in there. But
Flacco, hold on, Flacco, Wilson, Mike White.
Mike effing White. How could I forget my man? And can I just say something? That kid was such a class act here. And great. I hate the Miami Dolphins as much as the next Jet fan, but I have nothing but love and respect for Mike White and everything he did this past year. I wish him nothing but the best in South Beach, except when he plays us.
Right. No, absolutely. It's like I mean, can't root for him against us, can't root for him to win games if it'll hurt us. But other than that, it's hard for me to like it's about as much as I'm going to like and root for an individual player that plays for the Dolphins as anyone. I felt that way about Chad Pennington back in the day. And I kind of feel like that about Mike White. It's like, yeah, I hope it ends up, obviously, that we finish above them, that we make our run, but I hope somehow it goes well for him and that he comes out successful, because he played hard for us. He was a warrior, man. A lot of guys would not have stayed in that game. A lot of guys would not have tried to play. I mean, he was messed up really bad. He was very, very hurt and, seriously injured. His ribs were bad. I don't know if anybody's ever had bruised ribs, but my God.
Yeah. He went back into the game and they were all broken. I mean, my God, it's just, balls of steel. What else could you say?
Yeah.
Unbelievable effort by him. And I just, like I said, I wish him all the best.
Wouldn't that be a hell of a matchup? Aaron Rodgers versus Mike White. That's why it's hard to take the Dolphins super, super seriously, because the belief that Tua could go the entire season without taking a bad sack, where he's going to get hit hard to the ground, and knowing what we know now, he's at the point, and this is a horrible thing, I'm not happy at all to say it, but he's gotten to the stage where when anything where his head hits that ground's hard, helmet or no helmet, he's going to get concussed.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's criminal that the NFL and the Miami Dolphins are even allowing him to continue his career. And like I said, I am by no means a Dolphins fan, but, human decency first. I don't think he belongs out on a football field anymore, but hence the Mike White signing, because Mike White has experience coming in for a quarterback that's either been injured or struggling. Here's my hot take with this, and I'll close this topic with that. I expect Mike White to start the Dolphins game on Black Friday versus the Jets.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But then when you think about it as Rodgers versus White, it's like Miami's going to have to outplay us in every other position.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And how is that going to be? Our defense is, if our defense stays relatively healthy and we don't take major losses, our defense is going to be our defense. So their defense might play great, but it's not going to be that much better than our defense. So it's really hard to imagine a scenario other than just plain us having a bad day, obviously, but it's going to be tough for them. It's going to be difficult for them. I think they have a ton of talent. I just love the way we match up against them, because their biggest strength of their team is our biggest strength on defense. Their biggest strength is these, maybe the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. But the reality is we have one of the best cornerback duos. So, and I think it's a good matchup for them too, in some ways, because they have a really good secondary. They're not going to be easy. It's going to be a tough, hard-fought division game, like it always is. But at the end of the day, I think the reason I'd have any confidence is at the end of the day, it really comes down to Rodgers versus White or Rodgers versus Tua. And, it's hard to, I mean, if Tua is super healthy, I guess if Tua is healthy when we play them, but we play them kind of later in the season. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for them to even have Tua. I guess if they do, it's going to be, it'll be more of a game. But if it's Mike White, as much as I like Mike White, I think that's going to be the separator between the two teams. That's going to be the difference maker, when you get to the results of a game.
And that should play into the Jets' favor because that defense was used to playing against Mike White in practice every single day. So if it comes down to who's got the better cornerback tandem, I'd lean Jets. And even the more obvious one is your team is only as good as your quarterback. When you talk about the dynamic receiving duo that Miami has, far better than ours. But if you're talking about who's going to be the better person delivering the football, Mike White or Tua versus Aaron Rodgers, once again, it tilts in our favor with Aaron Rodgers. So another hot take of mine, I think we could sweep the fish this year. Pending, of course, that everybody stays healthy. I think this is the time.
Yeah. So Dano, I want you to know, you mentioned it before, the Sunday call-in show will be back. I'm just taking I'm kind of, if you haven't noticed, I'm doing a lot less because it's the off season, taking a break. I'm resting up, focusing on some other things in life. But once we get towards training camp, once we get through August or near the end of August and training camp starts, then I will go back and I will have the Sunday night call-in show. So that will resume again in July. And I'll probably go back to the 10 o'clock starting time for this, but or maybe 9 o'clock. I don't know. I'm going to try to see what works. We just, I'm on the East Coast. That's why that's happening. And I want to say to Daniel Meehan, who's a Miami Dolphin fan. One tip about Mike White: don't worry about Mike White in practice. Don't worry about it. He sucked. He sucked for us in practice. He sucked for us in preseason most of the time. He looked like crap most of the time. Mike White is a regular season quarterback. He is not an off-season quarterback. So as much as I hate to say it, because we want to beat you, do not rule out Mike White or think that Mike White's not good because he's having a bad offseason or training camp. Do not judge him by that, because I'm sure Vinny remembers Mike White did not impress in training camp. Remember?
I was ready to just have them just cut the guy, but I mean, like I said, his heart is so big. I mean, for anyone that's in the chat that's a Cowboys friend or friends of Cowboys fans, because I have tons of those. But he was cut by Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, I think 3 or 4 times, and they just kept, reclaiming him and just stashing him away on the practice squad because something was there. Something was there, and he needed the right staff and team around him to unleash that talent. And we were able to do that last year.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think he's going to end up playing for them. Some people, it's being talked about in the chat, I honestly do. I take no pleasure in saying it. I'll say it again, Daniel. What we're talking about is, from the outside looking in, it's just hard to see Tua making it through this season or having a long career at this point. Just from the experience of, there's something about concussions. Like once you have a bad concussion, it's like, it is a thing that he's no longer a guy that has an equal chance to everybody else of having a concussion. That's the thing with concussions. The more you have, or the more serious concussion you have, the more you end up having, meaning he has less tolerance to banging his head than other people now. It's almost like a doctor explained it to me as, imagine a rubber band. You know how when you stretch a rubber band, it gets more stretchy and it no longer has that tightness? Well, once that brain moves into your skull and stretches and, moves, it's looser. It's never as tightly held in your skull. That's exactly how a doctor explained it to me. And that's why you have players that have never had a concussion. And then you have players that do have a concussion are so much more likely to have another concussion. And players who have had 2 concussions are so much more likely to have a 3rd concussion. It's just an unfortunate reality. And he had 2 very serious concussions, within 3 weeks. Actually, he had 3.
Yeah.
He had the
Yeah.
initial one that they ignored, that they denied was a concussion. He had the one that scared the world, that terrified all of us. And then he had the third one where they did the right thing and they said, we're not going to let him play anymore. He had another concussion. He's feeling those symptoms. So he had three, and we know at least one of them was very, very severe.
Right.
To the
Right.
point where a lot of people questioned them even putting him on an airplane that night, because you're not supposed to do that with a concussion with the air pressure
Exactly.
because of internal
Exactly.
bleeding. So a lot of people even questioned that decision. So,
It's
so
amazing
that,
that the
you know,
NFL waited this long to, even recognize the fact that how serious this injury could be. Because for us older fans that have been watching football since way back when, I mean, back in the day or when you had a concussion, they weren't even called concussions. It's like, well, what happened? Oh, he just got his bell rung, and they'd send you right back in. Remember, that's all they would say.
no,
Oh, the guy got his bell rung. He's fine. Send him back out there.
yeah,
And guys were playing with concussions and not even realizing it.
yeah. And it's not, and this is false. It's not that I'm not taking the Dolphins serious. I'm saying it's hard to when you know they have a quarterback who cannot get sacked. And like every time he gets sacked, you're going to hold your breath when he gets up. Every time. Every time. And I know I'm not happy about it. It sucks. If it was up to me, I would erase I wish there was a helmet that protected every player, and this was no longer part of football. But the reality it is. And the reality is every time he gets sacked or goes down, you're going to have to worry, is he going to stand up? Is he going to get up without a concussion? So if he was healthy, I'm not going to argue and talk about Tua is outperformed every expectation. He keeps people proving wrong over and over again. It's true. Like everybody keeps saying he's not accurate, he's not this, and yet he keeps performing. So I'm not even going to get into that argument of the situation, the kind of play. I'm not even going to do that. Fine, like believe in him. Who knows what his ceiling is? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that the reason I don't see Tua getting 5,000 yards more than just because that's an astronomical number and it's very rare for a quarterback to throw that many yards. More than that, the reason I doubt it is because the guy has had 3 concussions last year. And I just watched football too long. When players have concussions like that, it happens over and over again. We experienced it with Altoon. As Jet fans, we went through it with Altoon. We saw it happen to Tony Romo before Aikman. It ended Aikman's career early. It ended Tony Romo's career early. I mean, it's not a joke. I mean, a lot of people say under the scenes, even though it's not as public, that's why Andrew Luck retired.
Steve Young, Wayne Corbett, the list goes on and on and on.
Right. I mean, and it's really unfortunate for him because he's really young, but it's not about age with concussions. It's just about when you're unfortunate enough to have one.
But they picked up his option, didn't they, Jeremy?
Yeah, they did pick up the option.
So, I mean, they clearly have belief that he's not only going to be their quarterback now, that he's the quarterback long term. So,
yeah,
I mean,
I think
good for him and his family that money's going to be coming and it's guaranteed. But it's just like my thing is, and I've said this on other channels and podcasts or whatnot. Here's my thing: is whoever you trot out there under center, you're telling the rest of the league, this guy's my best chance to get to the Super Bowl. So, what's his name? Daniel. That's a Dolphin fan. Daniel, can you close your eyes right now and envision Tua hosting the Lombardi Trophy? Not just this year, but ever. I think it's an easy no. I don't think it's ever going to happen. And I think you guys have a really talented roster, top to bottom, from pillar to post, offensive, defensively. But I think you got the wrong quarterback in place. And it shocks me that they didn't even make a run at Aaron Rodgers. I mean, thank God they didn't. But considering Tua's health and his injury history, I'm surprised. I mean, never mind Rodgers. There's so many other quarterbacks they could have upgraded or went back to the well and redrafted.
Yeah. Yeah. So shout out to the return of the Jedi, Rusty Spooner. Good to see you, friend. What's up, Jets fam? He is long time in the chats, this guy. Diehard Jets fan, great prospector, watches a lot of college football, cool-ass dude. Glad that you're out there, Rusty. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, so, I mean, I look, our division is tough. Our division is tough. If you stuck the Miami Dolphins in the division with Jacksonville, and Tennessee, and they, I think if you put any of our teams other than New England in that division, it would be much easier, like, path to believing winning a division. I think the hardest part about the Jets, Miami, or Buffalo winning the division has got to be I'm playing against at least two other teams that are really have amazing rosters, like lots of superstar talent. That's just the reality of our division. 3 out of the 4 teams in our division are stacked with very, very special players.
I wouldn't rule out New England just yet.
I
I know
know,
they probably
Belichick.
have. I know they have the worst roster out of all the 4 teams, but unfortunately, until we successfully defeat them and slay the dragon, and we all know, what Rodgers said, what he said.
Mhm.
Until we beat them, I still got to consider them a threat, because anytime Belichick is lined up on the other side of the field against the New York Jets, that guy coaches with blood in his eyes. He not only wants to beat us, he wants to embarrass us. If we have the opportunity to drop 50 on them or more, I encourage Coach Saleh and company to run up the score on them. It's long overdue. I've had enough. I want their blood. I mean, we've lost to them, 15, 16 times in a row. Enough. Now that we got Rodgers, it's like you're going into the game with a machine gun, not a water pistol, which is what Zach Wilson was. It's time to slay the dragon. It's time to sweep the Patriots for the first time in the Belichick era, which has never happened since he's been the coach. We've always either split or they've swept us. It's time. We need to beat the Patriots. I fully expect us to sweep Miami, because I don't consider them a threat. And we should bare minimum split with the Bills. We beat them last year with Zach Wilson, who was arguably the worst quarterback in the National Football League. And I think if we're really going to make a run this year, we need to win this division for the first time since 2002. Can you imagine our first home playoff game at MetLife Stadium with rabid New York Jets fans waiting for that moment in more than 2 decades? I feel sorry for the team that's got to come into our house and deal with us. I feel sorry for them. I'm old enough to say I was at the last home playoff game in 2002 when we blew the doors off Indianapolis 41-0. And to say that I was 16 years old then and now I'm 37, that sounds worse. But I'm telling you, when I was there and Peyton would come to the line and he tried to change the signals and audible at the line, drop back to pass, and then threw the ball into the dirt, we were all just laughing and laughing. I mean, dude, the parking lot, we were cracking on champagne bottles until 2 a.m. We were like, we're going to Oakland next week. We're gonna go to the Super Bowl. We got this. We got this. And we're gonna come out. And like I'm telling you, the Jets fans will come out and support and just make the environment hostile for whoever comes out. But it starts by winning the division.
Yeah, it's huge. Look, I think it's the first step to really getting out of the same old Jets. The thing we have to do to break this completely and shake us of this, and it might be the most important game of the season, is that game against New England. We have to win it. We have to beat them. And then people say it's weird. It's like, oh, we have bigger games. We got to play Kansas City. No, I really believe that just from a mental and psychological standpoint, we've got to beat the Patriots and get that monkey off our back. Like, it just has to happen. We have to beat them. We got the more talented roster. We need to put an end to it, because God forbid we go in there and lose, or they come and we lose that game. The psychological damage that will do to this team. And we have got to be too good to lose over nonsense like that. Like with your championship teams do not lose games because of history. They do not lose games because they're psyched out by a coach. Championship game teams are championship teams because they're too good to lose because of that. They're too strong. They're too disciplined. So there is no excuse to lose that game. We must win that game. So every player on our roster, from the first player to the 53rd player, will know without certainty in their mind, this is not the same old Jets. We are not a team that could be intimidated or beat because of history. That this is a different team. It's a team that's never existed before. This is a new, fresh year that's different than any year we've ever played, and put an end to it. And
It's
so
time.
So to me, that's the first big game as far as impacting every other game after it.
Correct. So I mean, it's time. I can't say it enough. I think we set the tone week 1 with Buffalo, a division rival game. And that's another one I consider week 1 must win. The great Joe Beningo, he said it when the schedule came out. It's must effing win. Because that first game, you can go right to the top of the mountain, be in first place, and drop the Bills, last year's AFC champions, right into the basement immediately. And sets you up with the opportunity to sweep them the next time you see them. Then you got week 2, big game against Dallas, and I think week 3 is the Patriot game, correct?
I thought it was. You're correcting me. I thought it was New England the second game, Dallas the
No,
third game.
Dallas is
Dallas
week
the
2.
second game, New England the third game.
Yeah, Dallas is week 2 in Jerry World, then it's the Pats, and then week 4 can't talk. Week 4 is Sunday Night Football against KC, which I mean, right now, if I had to bet the game, I think the Jets would lose that. But the fact that you have Aaron Rodgers gives you a puncher's chance. That's what that makes that game interesting.
Yeah, well, I think with Aaron Rodgers and with health, if we're healthy and we have Aaron Rodgers, we have we have a legitimate chance to win any game we play, and we better, because I'm hoping for a Super Bowl. The name of this video, the show,
we all
why
are.
the Jets will win the Super Bowl.
We all are. I mean, that's the name of the game at the end of the day. And if you're like me personally, with the draft that we had last year, the fact that they bring in an Aaron Rodgers, I mean, I'm not ready to say the team is Super Bowl bound. I'm ready to say right now on paper they're playoff bound. But if you told me that the Jets are going to be the 7th seed, go to the wild card on the road to be one and done, I'm sorry. That's not to make all these power moves. That is not acceptable. And I would see heads roll right then and there. It starts with winning the division. And then I think you got to win bare minimum a playoff game. Because if you're not winning the Super Bowl this year, that's what you need to show Aaron Rodgers as your proof. Like, listen, we got something growing here. Can you give us another year to take one more bite at the apple?
Yeah. Tony Alexia comes in with the super chat. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Will solid bench players who underperformed last year playoff were missed by this, also known as Zach Wilson, Tomlinson, Carter. I do think certain positions are more likely to get benched than others. We have a crowded tight end room. We have a crowded running back room. And the wide receivers, when you talk about like the numbers 3, 4, 5, when you get to that part of the roster, I think there's a tighter leash. I think with Tomlinson, I think he has a tighter leash than last year, but I think he has a longer leash than some of those other crowded rooms. The reality is just the contract, the experience, the wanting and the desire to maintain continuity in the offensive line. I think Tomlinson would have to play very poorly for us to bench him. I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm hopeful that Tomlinson will be one of our big comeback players this year. I think he was going through a lot of personal crap last year. I think it distracted him. I think with Rodgers now demanding the precision and the excellence from his teammates, I honestly believe that Tomlinson will have a bounce back year. But if he doesn't, nobody is safe from being benched if they play poorly, except for A-Rod, right? I mean, nobody is safe. But, Michael Carter, of course, in that crowded room, if he's dropping passes or if he's just getting tackled, not gaining any yards or making anything out of, if they feel there are holes and he's not popping into them, then those are crowded competitive rooms. Those guys are going to lose their slot. Defensive linemen, if they're taking plays off or whatever, with the amount of talent we have on the defensive line, none of those players could afford to take a play off. None of those players can mess up and take mistakes or have brain fart plays where they rough the passer. They're not going to get away with it because there's so much talent on the defensive line. They're not going to tolerate it. And what I like about that rotation is they know when they come into that game, I have to do something. Like I'm coming in 30% to 40% of the snaps. I have to do something. Like it's not only that I'm rested, but also if I mess up, if I don't give 100% right now, if I lag at all, why would they bring me back in, right? If I'm JFM, I know they could just go with JJ. If I'm JJ, I know they could go with JFM. I know they could go with Huff. I know they can go with Lawson. They can go with McDonald. It's just an endless list of players.
Exactly. No, I was not to cut you off. I apologize.
No,
I, I
go
was
ahead.
I was gonna say I think honestly that's something that Coach Sala needed to work on not only last year but going into this year is just when a player is fouling up, especially on the field over and over. It's you got to approach the guy and say, listen, if it's not working out, or you having a bad day, whatever, are you confused? Tell him to have a seat. That's how they screwed up the development with Zach Wilson. They didn't know when was enough with the kid, and I think he felt sorry for him. He's just like, this was my second overall draft pick. This is the guy I thought was the future in the franchise, and he hesitated so much just to bench him when he fouled up. He did it with Denzel Mims as well. I mean, like I said, I'm an old school fan, just like you, Jeremy. I go way back. Like I always reference Coach Parcells. I mean, he's the main reason why I became a Jets fan when he came to New York. I mean, he turned things around so quickly here, and he came to a team that was 1-15 the year prior. And I would watch the guy in practice, and he would say to him, "Do it again, do it again, do it again. I'm gonna be here all day. Do it again until you do it right." I mean, granted, I know in this day and age, the players now have gotten to the point they make so much money that they actually have more power than the coaches and the owners. But I mean, at some point in time, you got to grab the guy by the face mask and say, enough is enough, because there's a guy on the bench that'll take your spot just like that.
Yep. Yep. And honestly, I think that what's really cool is we do have that problem sometimes with young players where they think they're bigger than the coach. We saw one of them get traded very recently before the draft, and
Thank goodness.
I think that one of the things that's going to help the Jets and make them better, other than his talent, is you may think you're bigger than the coach, but I seriously doubt any player is going to think they're bigger than Aaron Rodgers.
Oh yeah, I
So
mean
no one's coming up.
accountability.
Not one
Accountability is
of
going to
our
be a big thing.
receivers. Not one of our receivers is going to go into that huddle and yell at the quarterback and say, "Throw me the goddamn ball." You're not going to see that happen
No.
on
And
our team.
we've seen that happen the last 3-4 quarterbacks we had, from the Genos, the Sanchez's, the Zach Wilsons, even the Ryan Fitzpatricks. As soon as there was like a skirmish in the huddle, you had your own receivers and linemen yelling at the guy. That's not a leader. This guy is going to command accountability in that huddle. I'm telling you. I mean, as soon as he got to New Jersey, everybody just, it's like the clouds have parted. We're seeing a ray of sunshine here for the first time in God knows how long. But it's just the accountability is a big thing with this team that has to change, and it's been a problem for the last 2 decades of bad football that we've seen. But again, I think Rodgers opens that up, and things are gonna change.
Yeah. Look, I mean, let's be real. I don't care who the player is. If a player comes back into that huddle, whether it's a running back like Michael Carter, it's whether it be Corey Davis, or if it could be hard. It doesn't matter. If they get back into that huddle, and any of those offensive players, we've seen our quarterbacks get yelled at by players. If they yell at Aaron Rodgers will not ask the coach or look to the coach. Aaron Rodgers will call a timeout, go to the sideline, and say, "Get this jack out of there. Get this motherfucker out of here."
That's it.
Done. He's not playing the rest of the game, or he's not playing the rest of his drive until he learns to shut his mouth. He'll decide the punishment. So it's like, it really is having a coach on the field.
Exactly.
And we all know it never works out well when a wide receiver is yelling at the quarterback, pacing along the sideline, screaming. It's never a good thing. The team will try to pretend, and we've seen teams do it. Oh, it's not a big deal. He's just letting out him. No, it's the worst thing that can happen for a team during a game is when you see a player walking up and down the sidelines and other players having them to calm him down. We're not stupid. That is not a good look. That is not a winning team. That is not a championship team. That is not what you see happening in New England. That is not what you see happening on any Super Bowl team, on like Kansas City Chiefs, where you see teams competing and winning Super Bowls. So it's really nice to know that we're not. I mean, it's not going to happen. Like we know that at least we're not going to see a player walking up and down the sideline pouting because they didn't get the ball, or you're not calling plays to them. So it's nice. It's nice to know that it feels it's confident. It gives you a sense of confidence that Aaron Rodgers is not going to allow that to happen. So
How
we didn't.
about perfect example? Look how bad things turned for the Denver Broncos last year with Russell Wilson. When they saw that image of his own offensive lineman just tearing into him on the sideline, after that they were never the same again. It was all downhill. It's
Done.
all downhill.
Done.
And
Can't.
quarterbacks have proven, though, in this league, and Rodgers is considerably older than Russell Wilson, but guys that change teams in their late 30s, early 40s have proven they can win. I can easily reference Tom Brady. That's the obvious one, who won right away with Tampa Bay. Peyton went to 2 Super Bowls with Denver. He won one of them. Kurt Warner almost pulled it off at 38 or 39 with Arizona. Joe Montana got the Chiefs to the AFC title game minutes from their first Super Bowl appearance in '68. Difficult, not impossible. We can definitely do this, and history shows it's very, very attainable.
Yeah. It's so many things that are going to be different than our past, that I'm confident will be different. It's just so many things, and it makes sense. It's like when JD stripped the roster down and had to rebuild it. You can't do it in 1 year because you could put good players out there, but you can't build everything in 1 year. You can't get the depth. When you think about that, we're only the third year into this rebuild, and then you look at the depth in most of the rooms on our team. It's absolutely mind-blowing how much depth there is on this team. And he's not done. He's just going to keep doing what he does, Joe Douglas. He's going to keep going.
It's a hell of a GM. And I'm just so happy that he's here. And now I'm starting to understand the plan that they put into place. Like, for those of you who don't remember, Douglas didn't want to take this job unless they put 6 years on the table. There was a reason behind that, because when you really looked at the roster, the mess that he inherited from Mike McCagnon, arguably one of the worst general managers, forget the Jets, one of the worst general managers in professional football, who will never be a GM again. It's just like, this has to be torn completely down to the foundation and done the proper way. That's why he needed those extra 2 years in the deal. Any idiot can get 4 and then fail after 3. But now I really see the vision here. And like I said, the only blemish on his record, I have to say, is the selection of Zach Wilson. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, unfortunately, they won those 2 games the year prior and dropped themselves out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes.
Yeah, and even that, I think, is forgivable in the sense that it's not like he made a controversial pick. He really didn't. The majority of GMs in the NFL said this was something that was talked about, that if they were a quarterback needy team, the majority of NFL GMs would have taken Zach Wilson with that pick. And the 49ers would have. If the Jets would have traded out with the Niners, they wouldn't have taken Trey Lance. They would have taken Zach Wilson. They would have. And the other part of that is, the reality is, you just never know with a quarterback.
No.
And, sometimes you get an Andrew Luck, a Trevor Lawrence, you get certain players out of a draft that when they come out that are obvious, you have to take them, and there's no pressure because nobody in the world wouldn't have taken them, and no one can blame you. But it's the hardest position. And the fact that even in spite of missing on that pick, the fact that we're here and that we're a realistic Super Bowl contender, top 8 in Vegas betting odds, so that represents the entire country's betting, is just an unbelievable. It makes it more amazing what he did, because most teams can't survive picking a quarterback at number 2 and not having it work out. Usually those teams, that's like a Detroit Lion kind of thing when they went 20 years of being bad, right? Tampa Bay, that's when they went years of being bad. That's usually and us in the past when we would make bad choices at quarterback. Usually you don't overcome bad quarterback picks. When you have a top 5 pick and you take a quarterback and it doesn't work out, usually you don't overcome that. And the reality, when you look at where we are now, the fact that we did that, and we're only in the 3rd season and had a wasted number 2 pick that turned into a failed quarterback at this point, it's amazing that we're sitting where we're sitting. And that was because, even with that, the reason we were able to recover is because of his sensible and really good finding value and, really cleaning up the books financially. So the reality that, the fact that we were able to go out and didn't have a problem getting an Aaron Rodgers, because he was able to sign good, smart deals and get role players and fill, and kind of fill the roster with solid guys at good value. We had the money to do all this, and he accumulated draft picks, so we had the draft picks to do it as well.
Exactly. So, listen, Aaron Rodgers wins us a Super Bowl or whatnot. All is forgiven with that Zach Wilson pick. Let's
Yeah,
build a statue to JD outside MetLife Stadium.
absolutely, absolutely. And one day when Aaron Rodgers leaves, Joe Douglas is going to have to get the next one right.
Exactly. And that's why, what? Honestly, in a say the scenarios, whether it's this year or next year, because we obviously know Rodgers' time here is limited. If we make a legitimate Super Bowl run, say you get to the AFC title game, you got to go on the road. You're going to Arrowhead, and you lose to Pat Mahomes and company by like 7 points. Is that really a failed season? No. Because sign me up, because how often do we get the opportunity for that run? I do the trade all over again twice if I could, because you knew how far we were going to go with Zach Wilson, and it wasn't far at all. So, again, just, for fans' sake, it's Super Bowl or bust. No, it's not. It's just to have that chance for that bite at the apple. That's all it is. And you know what? Hats off, not just to JD. I rarely say this. Hats off to Woody, to getting everybody on that plane, going out to Malibu and giving their pitch to Aaron to say, listen, come here. Because if you come here and you win, you solidify your legacy so much. I always compare it to, I'm a diehard New York Rangers fan. Mark Messier won 5 Stanley Cups with the Edmonton Oilers. He came here in 94 and he won 1 and ended one of the worst droughts in hockey history, because leading up to when they won that title in 94, the knock on the Rangers was 1940. When they hoisted the cup, I still remember the announcers saying, no more 1940.
Yeah.
And every time you hear about Mark Messier, he's just associated with being a New York icon. And
Yeah.
I think Aaron Rodgers has that opportunity to do that, and it's right for one title here in New York, especially with the Jets. With the Jets, who has one of the worst droughts in not just league history, sports history. I mean, it would be on the level of winning 5 of them in Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the moment we start making a run, like we go to the playoffs and make a deep run, the moment we realize, oh wow, we can make the Super Bowl, we have a chance. There's no such thing as you have to win the Super Bowl, otherwise you failed. Because no trade or no move that a GM makes guarantees a Super Bowl. There are 32 football teams in this league, all spending millions and millions of dollars with professionals doing everything they can to win. To sit there and say the only way it could be a success is if you happen to be the best of the 32. No. The reality is what makes a trade successful or makes the GM successful, the moves they make successful, is did they make you a team that had the opportunity? Did they make you a contender and give you a real chance to win that Super Bowl? There's only so much you can do. At the end of the day, there's referees that make crazy calls. There's the ball, bad luck, making crazy bounces. And there's, at the end, great football teams, really great talented teams that are just, have amazing talent also. So to sit there and say this could only be a good move if we win the Super Bowl is absolutely crazy. What we're asking for, what we need as fans, is the realistic hope, the realistic belief. And I say realistic, not a miracle, but a realistic reason to believe that we could win the Super Bowl. And the question is, at this point so far, and I think it has to be followed up with a deep playoff run, but at this point so far, where we are now, I'm very content and happy with all the moves, because I honestly believe that we are realistically a team that can go and win the Super Bowl.
Amen. You're getting me pumped up just hearing you preach, Jeremy.
I have my moments. That's why Daniel even likes me. He's a Miami Dolphin fan. He likes me. Someone said, what is he doing here? He's here because I'm a likable guy.
But that's fine. I welcome the friendly rivalry. That's fine. I don't care. Hey, real quick, if it's all right with you, because I don't know how much time I have. Do you think we could touch base on what you brought up to me before I came on, the whole Revis versus Klecco thing? I want to talk about that so badly.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to give you the floor. Make your take on that.
Oh, thank you, sir. So, from what I understand, and one of my favorite podcasts that's out here on YouTube on the Jake Asman Show, and I've met Jake in person, an awesome guy, and one of my favorite shows that's on here. Everybody, tune into him if you haven't already. He had Joe Klecco on. He also recently had Revis on. From what I understand, now there's this little spat that's going on between the two of them, and of course, the media's always wanted to associate negativity with the New York Jets. So, from what I understand, what triggered this is Revis claimed that in his argument that he recently had sent a text message. This is how petty this is, to Joe Klecco about getting together or doing some type of event, and Joe never responded to him. Allegedly. So he turns around and says that, then Joe called him out on it in front of a bunch of NFL PR people and embarrassed them, and he didn't like that too much. Revis comes back and assaults him verbally and says, he needs to understand, not only am I, a great football player, but I'm the greatest Jets defender of all time. Like, are we really doing this? Really? You're both going into the Hall of Fame. Daryl, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer. This other gentleman's approaching his 70s. Okay, he waited 30 years for the honor, and he played. Granted, I'm not old enough to remember the Stock Exchange days. It's before my time. That was my dad's time, and probably his favorite Jet of all time is Joe Klecco. But I mean, he always tells me when he first came to America in the early 80s and he saw Klecco and Gastineau, he said, these are my guys. That's why my family are Jets fans, is because of the Stock Exchange. Now, but for Revis to say something like this, I mean, honestly, do we really want to call out Revis for all his antics that he pulled during his playing career? Let's not forget, Darrelle Revis struggled immensely his rookie year. Let's not forget that whole game with the Patriots where Randy Moss completely thoroughly embarrassed him and torched him up and down the field. Now, if you want to compare him to our current CB1 and Sauce Gardner, who, by the way, won Defensive Rookie of the Year, Revis didn't do that. He went all-pro as a rookie, which hasn't been done by any NFL player as a rookie since Ronnie Lott. That was the early 80s. Okay, Darrell, that was the early 80s, if you really want to talk about being an elite player, because he made a claim on Twitter today that he played at an elite level every single year of his career. No, he didn't. When he came back here for his second tour of duty, okay, and robbed us blind, highway robbery, getting overpaid again, he was hot garbage. And furthermore, with the way he treated the Jets fans, and I still haven't forgiven him for this, when he signed on with New England and he won his Super Bowl ring, and yes, he deserved it. He's a Super Bowl champion. I'm not taking anything away from that. But he was quoted in an interview if he felt bad for the Jets fans during that Super Bowl run, because we were struggling that year immensely. He had no shame in saying he couldn't care less how Jets fans felt. So for there's Jets fans out there that won't end this bromance with Darrelle Revis, who's calling out a man that's approaching his 70s, who did everything right. Stop. It's childish. It's petty. I mean, do you think they're going to retire 24 for Darrelle Revis? I wouldn't. For you older fans out there, you can make a legitimate argument that Freeman McNeil deserves the honor. Did we forget about Freeman McNeil? I mean, I don't know what to say. It's sad. It's petty. Jeremy, I got to hear your take, because it legitimately, it set me off when I heard about this.
Yeah, look, there's no question in my mind that Darrelle Revis was a very special player, one of the great, possibly best coverage cornerbacks in the history of football up until his time. It's very arguable that Deion Sanders was the better player, with the returning and the other things that Deion brought to the table. But as far as coverage and pure coverage, one-on-one, it's definitely arguable. No one could say it's not an argument. I know there's other names people could throw out, but nobody is looked upon or laughed at or considered ridiculous for arguing that Revis was the best coverage, one-on-one man cover cornerback to ever play the game. It's definitely a reasonable argument. And I just want to make that clear. But I also want to say, it could be argued. There are other guys you can throw into the argument and not be crazy either. Now, that aside, I was saying this in a Patreon, on a Discord conversation to somebody, because they were defending how good he was. How could you say he's an asshole? He was so good. Both things could be true. Just because you're a great player doesn't make you a good person. Just because you're the best at something doesn't mean you're also going to be a nice guy. I mean, that's why we all love Jerry Rice. my generation, because he was also a great guy, right? And that's like the special thing. And guess what? Joe Klecco was a great guy. He was great to the fans. He was a great, great guy. Marty Lyons, for example, great player, great guy, right? Freeman McNeil, great player, great guy. So you look at Sauce Gardner. He's not only great, he's a great guy. He's a great person. And I understand he has a lot of years left. Let's see what happens when all the money comes. But I don't really have any question about his character. You could just sense it. You talk to him, you listen to him, you just know he's just this sweet, great kid with a big heart, really good person, wants to be the best, determined, loyal, all that good stuff. But Darrelle Revis was never that.
No.
So the reality is he's always been about himself. And for him to go, so yes, you're one of the greatest players ever, greatest cover cornerback ever. Fine. No argument. You deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. No question about it. But why would you attack a guy who, first of all, had a much more painful position? And no one's going to argue that. The trenches is the worst place to be. These guys, their hands are blistered. They're in pain. I was told by an offensive lineman, anytime you meet an NFL offensive or defensive lineman, if you ever get to meet one, you're ever walking and you go to shake their hands, don't squeeze hard. Don't squeeze hard.
I was fortunate enough to meet Klecco, and I mean, even at his age now, I mean, his hands are huge,
right?
Huge. And I mean, let me just set the record straight. I have nothing but love and respect for what Revis was able to do here for the Jets. Was he able to deliver a championship? No. But the true great athletes of our time, and it's not just professional football. I'm talking about the best of the best at their positions, like you referenced, the Jerry Rices, the Michael Jordans, the Derek Jeters. They never had to go out and say, I was the best of the best, because they know it. There's no reason to say it. Other people say it about them. Right. But for him to come out and glow, I mean, even in that Super Bowl he won with the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken, you could check the stats. I think he finished with 1 tackle and 1 sack. It's not like he did anything to take the game over. But again, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Yeah, this isn't a shot at Darrelle Revis's playing career. Absolutely not. He's probably one of the greatest corners I ever saw in my life, that I was fortunate enough to say was on my team. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you said it best, Jeremy. Bottom line is, he's not a nice person at the end of the day. He's just not.
Yeah, I mean, and getting back to what I was saying, what really bothers me about that whole thing is Revis fought and cried over $16 million a year. He fought, millions at that time, right? I mean, now it doesn't sound like the biggest deal, because every year it's getting like crazier and crazier. But at his time, it's still a ridiculous amount of money to make, but it was even a little bit more ridiculous to make that much money. Look at what the players in Klecko's time made.
Yeah, and right? back then they were really hitting you. There weren't all these rules to not just protect quarterbacks, but protect players. For God's sake, Joe Klecco made it to the Pro Bowl in 3 different positions, and to this day, we're in 2023, it has never been duplicated. He's the only player in history that's been to the Pro Bowl at 3 different positions. Why did it take 3 decades to put the man in the Hall of Fame? I'll tell you why. It's because he played for the New York Jets, which aren't like one of these, franchises that are like, so beloved, that have this huge fan base and have success over the years. If he played for those old Raider teams, the 49ers, the Cowboys, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Packers, he probably would have been first ballot. It's because he played for the Jets, and he only had a couple of playoff runs during the sack exchange, unfortunately, but his numbers speak for themselves. 1981, before I was even born, I know he had 20 and a half sacks. One guy. 20 and a half sacks. It doesn't happen.
Right. He was fantastic. You know what he never did? He never complained about his contract while he was playing in his contract. I don't care what a player does when their contract's expired. They have the right to fight for the best possible deal, whatever. When you're not under contract, you have the right to do whatever you want. So you could say, I want this much money, and you're a free agent, so other teams will bid for you. And guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to get your value is what the highest paying team is willing to pay you. And right. Fine, I have no beef with a player who does that. There were Met fans mad at DeGrom when he left. Why? A team came and offered him the more money. He did what was right for him. I have no complaint about that. But when a player in the middle of their contract starts complaining about it and causing a distraction to the team, that is absolutely inexcusable to me. You signed a contract. What's the point of having contracts? Why did the players union and the owners, whatever, got together and they made agreement? They signed the deal. And the deal says you play for this many years for the team that drafts you. And they even spelled out the money if you're a first round pick. The team has no obligation to extend your contract early, to redo your contract early. No obligation. There is no precedent. Like to me, there's nothing you could say to me that makes it at all fair for a player to be able to sit there and say, I'm playing well, so I want my contract changed now. Because if a player is a bust, the team doesn't get to say to the player, we're going to lower your salary in the middle of a contract. We don't get to go to Zach Wilson and say, well, we're redoing your contract. We're lowering you to $3 million a year, not $10 million, because you're sitting on the bench and you didn't work out. No, we have to pay him the full $10, $11 million, right? So it's nonsense. There's a reason that a contract exists. And to me, a real human being, like a person with character, when you sign a contract, you play out your contract. And that's it. Done. There's no choice in this. You signed the contract. Now play it. So the fact that he cried like a baby and did that annoys me like crazy. And then to go and disrespect one of the all-time great Jets that played before you. You know what I mean? That played before you, that set traditions for the team, that set a legacy for the team. And then you're going to go up there and say that crap and say the things that he said. To me, it's just nonsense. He's an immature baby, and it's sad, really.
Yeah, because and Joe loved everything about being a Jet. He wasn't all about the dollars, the cents, and like I understand professional sports, not just football, any of them. Your playing career is so short. You want to make as much money as you possibly can. I get that. It's not about, you trying to squeeze the owner for every dollar and cent you can get out of him. It's the way he went about it. It's like you can look at it to Jamal Adams, the way he forced his way out of here. It's just there's a way to do things, and that's not the way you do it. It's just not. It's bad business. It doesn't look good.
Yeah. Tony, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Second one of the night. Thank you for that.
Oh, can I take this one? I take this one?
I'm just going to say, I'm going to say until Q doesn't show up to mandatory training camp, he's done nothing wrong.
No, he has done absolutely everything right. He comes to practice. He hits his numbers. He hasn't done anything stupid with getting arrested. I mean, I know he had the gun charge, which was a lot of BS. It got cleared. If somebody does everything they do, pay the guy. And it's not just for him. It sets the precedent in the locker room for the rest of the guys. You do what you need to do. We will compensate you handsomely. And the thing is with Jets, I don't think they've paid a first-round selection since Muhammad Wilkerson, and a lot of that has to do with the fear of getting burned, because I'm on record. A lot of these guys, I would make an argument, 50% of them, when they secure the bag, they don't give a shit anymore, for lack of a better way of saying it. And that's the fear with paying them, because once their money's guaranteed, that's it.
Yeah. So, to me, I have no problem with Klecco playing the game. Like his agents, take them off your Twitter. Like they're playing the negotiating game. It's very common as you're going into the final year. The fact that he wants an extension is a good thing, because some players are willing to risk injury because they want to get out of a city. He obviously wants to be a Jet. That's why this is happening, because he wants the extension. He wants to be a Jet. From what I hear, he doesn't want to sign a long commitment because he knows that the salary cap is going to go up and players are going to make a lot more money. So right now they're just playing the game of taking care of himself. As long as he goes into training camp and works hard and is the same guy and is a leader for the team and doesn't cause distraction and doesn't complain during the season or when he's with the team or let it be a distraction, he's done nothing wrong. I'm totally fine with players playing the game, having the business side of football. That's fine. It becomes a problem the second you start complaining to the media during a season in the locker room and you start to distract the team. As soon as you start putting yourself and what's going on in your personal life, in your business life, whatever it is, on top of or ahead of the team, that's when I have a problem. That's when you lose a lot of respect. Quinn Williams has not done that, so I don't want to really put it in the same category of what Revis did, because Revis was complaining about his money in the middle of a contract during a season and doing it publicly and distracting the team.
Well said. Very well said. So honestly, and if we're talking about figures for Quinnen, from what I understand, from what I've read online from Samini and other Jets beat writers, I don't even think at this point it's the money that's the issue. I think from what I understand, it's the number of years they're talking, because I think what Quinnen is trying to do is he wants to make sure he secures a good amount of money, but he ends the career or the contract just at the point where he could secure one more contract before it's all said and done. That's what a lot of these guys are doing nowadays.
Right. And it's a little bit of a gamble on their ends, because he could, knock on wood, he could tear an Achilles and never be the same guy.
Yeah, God forbid.
Yes, God forbid, I'm knocking on wood, but I'm just making the point. You never know. It's football. So it's a different philosophy. I personally, maybe my Jewish background, I'm going to secure the long-term contract and make sure I get all the money I'll ever need in my life the moment I can, if I'm playing a game that dangerous where I see careers come to an end all the time.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Right? I mean, how many times a season do we watch a career come to an end?
Every year.
So to me, it's like, you want to pay me for 5 years, give me 67 guaranteed million in $100 million contract. Where's the dotted line? Because at the end of the day, what does it really matter? Once I get that 67 million, after I pay my agent or whatever it is, I have enough money to do anything I've ever wanted to do in my life anyway. So who cares?
It's easy for guys like you and I to say who won't live long enough to see that kind of money. It's just like, it's never enough, though, because we've never been in those shoes, unfortunately.
Yeah, but, I've made decisions, even in my salary range, though, that are bigger, like taking cuts to take a job I'm happier in, to live in a different place, to take, to teach, to work in the school level, the age level I wanted. So I think there is, though, like a level of maturity and understanding of money is not the only thing to weigh in your happiness. That at the end of the day, like, if you're making 20 million and the other team's offering you 23 million, if you're really happy, is that 3 million really worth it? Is that going to give you the happiness if you go to that new city and you're not as happy?
And not only that, are they going to present the opportunity for you to win? Because I've always read too, like even before this whole Rodgers to the Jets thing began, I read when Brady first made the move to Tampa Bay and he won immediately. Of all the quarterbacks league wide, they said it infuriated Rodgers that Brady was not only able to pick his own team, be able to walk away where no one had to give up compensation for him. He went to a roster that was already built. The defense was strong. The weapons were there. And he won immediately. And Rodgers was trapped in Green Bay. He couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. So
Thank you.
There you go. That's our take on Darrelle Revis. We got into Quinnen Williams too, which is nice, because I would, by the way, I want to throw in, it would be really nice to have that extension negotiated and worked out. I'm not panicking yet. We got all of training camp. And he's coming to training camp, so it's not like he's holding out or anything like that. So there's no reason to panic. I believe it's going to get done. I believe they're determined to get it done. There's just no rush on either side. There's no reason to rush. So it'll happen. And it'll feel good when it does. It's gonna, if anybody's earned an extension, a former, like Quinnen is the right guy to do this with, and extend and do this for. So I'm really happy about it. He's the best player on our defense right now, arguably, because Sauce Gardner, I think, is going to be not just Hall of Famer, but
I think he's
generational.
The next face of the NFL. You heard it here first on Jet Chaos. The next face of the NFL, Ahmad Sauce Gardner.
Small Heath Jet Patrol. Thanks, man. I appreciate the super chat. When I was 9 years old, I saw Joe Klecco at a deli. He went outside his car and grabbed a photo of himself and signed it personally to me. Good dude.
I love stories like that. I love stories like that.
I love stories like that. That's amazing. It's amazing. So 9 years old, it's we're close to the same age, because In his heyday of the sack exchange, I was 12. In their heyday, I was 12. So whether he got his that autograph a little before that or after that, we're in the same territory in age. Old enough, I'm old enough to be Vinny's father.
I wasn't gonna ask, Jeremy.
It's always funny and interesting because I don't feel that. I don't feel like it, but numbers wise, the math works. So. But thanks for the super chat. Thanks for the story. More than the super chat, thanks for that story. Because like you said, Vincenzo, that is the best thing to hear. Like, I love hearing when players that I really love that made an impact on my life as a fan, and then I hear that they're like that. That makes me feel even that much better about loving them and, being a fan of them.
Yeah. Like, I'll tell you a quick story. When I used to go down to Hofstra, because I live in southwestern Connecticut, and the drive down to Hofstra was like a little bit more than an hour. It wasn't bad. Like, to go to Florham Park now, for me, it takes 2 hours. So I won't be going to Florham Park anymore. I've been there, but it's too long of a ride. But when I went to Hofstra, across the street from the Jets practice facility, Wayne Corbett had his own restaurant. It was called Corbet's. And when the practice was over, me, my father, my sister, we went over there. We ordered a meal, and just for ha-has, I asked the person that took our order. I was like, "Is Wayne here today?" I took a chance, and they're like, "Yeah, you want to meet him?" I was like, "Yeah." And he came over to the table, shook our hands, took a bunch of photos, and I had my football with me and a mini helmet. He signed everything, and
Mm.
I said, "Wait, I got a few more things in the car. Would you mind signing it?" He goes, "Yeah, go get whatever." And I brought shirts, footballs, helmets. He signed everything and didn't blink an eye. And once he was done, he's like, "You got anything else?" I was like, "No, that's more than enough." And I'm telling you, and I've met tons of players from my days going down to Hofstra University, but the absolute class act of class acts, it's Wayne Corbett. And the only thing I feel sorry for him is the fact that he never was able to get a Super Bowl ring, which is career deserved.
Yeah, yeah, I would have loved for him to get that. I just, a lot of times I just, especially when I see him on some podcasts and everything, I'm like, I'm good to see him talking. I just hope he's like okay. Too many stories about the guys with concussions being depressed and having all these issues, and all I want is to know is that he's okay. I want this guy to be really happy and live a great life because he gave me so many great moments, and he was such a great inspiration because he was such an underdog, and he did it with all heart. He was 100% heart, and that's like, what player do you want to follow? What player can you love more than that? That does it with all heart. Like, it's
Exactly.
just, he's the absolute best. And yeah, like, man, I would love to meet him someday. I'm hoping to, but because just to tell him that, such an inspiration. It's like,
Yeah,
do what you love, but do it with all your passion and all your heart, and things will go well in your life.
exactly.
That's what he stands for. So it's just good stuff. Yeah, so we'll call it quits. I gotta go back to my parents, taking care of them and visiting down here. But hey man, it was great talking to you, Vinny. I'm so glad you came on.
No, thank you for having me, Jeremy. And also, another big thanks, if they're going to rewatch this, to Sack, Anthony, Justin, everybody that's involved with the Jet Lounge. I was fortunate enough to meet them all at the Green White scrimmage at the stadium last year. I'm always in their Twitter space, chiming in. I wanted to be a part of something bigger. I do run a small Jets channel myself. It was called Vinny and the Jets. I'm entertaining the idea of rebranding, possibly doing something along the lines of called Jets Fans Behind Enemy Lines when you're living here in the heart of New England. But if there's anything else you guys need with, promoting the Jet Lounge or even my channel, Vinny and the Jets, reach out. Jeremy has an awesome channel here with Jets Chaos. I've been listening to you longer than you think, dude. Like, you do great work, and honestly, like, I don't have the time. Like, right now, I'm in the off season. I put up a board on my YouTube page that right now I'm waiting for preseason to start because I have little kids at home. It's tough to break news about every little thing. But this was fun, and I mean, hey, anytime, drop me a line, anytime.
Yeah. Aside from this show, I'll be doing during the season Sunday night late shows, like last thoughts after the games, after everyone's done their reactions. I'm going to kind of wrap up the night, and I'd love to have you on that sometimes. I'll have you, like, I'll be in touch about, I'd love to see, get your insights after, hopefully what's going to be our wins. So,
Will be.
yeah, so we're in touch. We'll definitely have you on the channel again. You're definitely, I want to have more of the Jets Lounge guys. We've only just begun. We really haven't gotten it going. I think maybe when the season starts, as we get closer, we'll get more and more involved. I'm waiting for my neon Jets Lounge light to get behind me. And hoping we can get Sack on more, and Kenny and Justin and those guys on more. And maybe dedicate some, like a Jet Lounge show specifically, that's geared towards the Twitter listeners, to get them onto YouTube and get to see the faces of the Jets Lounge people, and and connect those people to the YouTube Jets people, and
Exactly.
I think that'll be a good thing. So we'll work on that. And I want to thank everybody. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. And man, you guys are the best. Thanks. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate you, Vinny. Everybody take care. I will hopefully be on. I'll try to make a surprise appearance on the weekend if I can, rather than wait the full week. I want to wish Nick Shine well, my normal co-host who couldn't be here tonight. He's in the hospital. Everybody, please put your best thoughts for Nick. Send him your best. Hopefully he'll be out soon. He'll be better. And I already see my wife saying hi. That means she's saying, "Get out here." Take care, everybody.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Let me take this chat down. I'm trying to think of what to play. How should we leave this evening off? We started it with the MetLife. So what are we going to give them? We're going to give them the Chaos. Oh yeah! Go! Amazing! That's my boy! Breaks away from a sack and completes the pass for first down.
Oh, Kittle just may have made the most amazing catch.
He fights for the first down and gets out of bounds too.
It's no good. Overtime. Oh, what a catch! How do you drop that? What are you, Jamal Adams? Touchdown!
This is a touchdown all the way!
He reached over the pylon. San Francisco beat Cincinnati.